Hello and welcome to the Pro Detailer podcast. We are joined here with a special guest all the way from the United States of America. And in fact, he landed probably an hour and a half ago. And it is in fact a Sunday morning, very early. We're buried away in Hayes in London. Lovely, lovely place.
If you hear gunshots in the background, don't worry about it, it's fine.
Noise cancelling headphones are doing a good job. And we are joined here by Jay Schneider. Now, Jay, introduce yourself.
Yeah, I'm Jay Schneider. I am the president and CEO of Lake Country Manufacturing and LC Power Tools.
That's pretty cool. And you're over here for only a very brief, fleeting visit, aren't you?
I'm here in Europe for a week and looking forward to seeing our UK office for the first time later today, actually.
I imagine Kelly is running around now, dusting it and making it look all
I'm
pretty.
sure he is, yes.
I bet he's got an apron on as well. He's got one of those little pennies doing the feather duster.
You're just putting images in my head. I don't need it this time of day.
Images that, frankly, you already had.
Yeah, well, he sends me a lot. I really want to talk to you because you've had a fascinating time. You were, I'm just giving you an idea. You're a young man, so you were born in June 1980?
I was,
That's
yes.
not weird that I knew that, is it? Yeah.
I'm sure there's some place you could find that information.
And yet you run a massive multi-million pound corporation that has got a seriously decent reputation globally for the production of pads and more recently machine polishers and that sort of thing. How do you do it?
Well, been blessed to have a strong support group with my family. Learned a lot through a lot of people. Definitely made a lot of mistakes, but fortunate to have a really strong team that leads the way, and I just help guide them to have the greatest results that we can possibly have.
Well, because you've got a catchphrase, it's something like "make less noise, listen more," or something like that, isn't it?
Innovation to make life easier is our
That's your kind of slogan.
Is our slogan, and it's for not just for the products that the consumers use, but that's also what we look at internally as well, where we focus on, hey, there's even in the factory, if there's a 2-second thing that makes making the products better or quicker or whatever, we want to hear about it. So we really promote that both internally, and it shows in the products externally as well.
Well, that's a topic we want to come back to because I know you very much foster creativity and innovation just among your staff and actually encourage it even outside of kind of day-to-day business of things, which is really fantastic, to be honest. We don't see that very often over here, certainly.
Yeah, we've been very blessed to have a lot of creative people work for us, and it shows in our products, and we really promote it. And because of that, people stick around because we allow them to be creative, and it's been awesome.
That's cool. Well, let's go back into the midst of time. Ian, do you want to do a sound effect?
Not that one.
Not that one. There we go. You can tell it's a new series. LC was technically started by your father.
Correct.
And he bought out 3 companies back in 1977.
That is correct. Yes.
And now one of them, I seem to remember, had something to do with cosmetics or like makeup blushes or something.
Yes, yeah. So he played tennis with a guy from the Knirchild family, and their family had these businesses for 85 years, and nobody wanted to take him over. And my dad didn't really care for the job he was in at the time. It's like, oh, I'll buy them. And it was a cosmetic division where they made velour powder puffs for putting on makeup.
I rely on that sort of thing. I'm actually 50.
And that was, he held that business for 5 years and sold that off. Then we had a sheepskin division where he made
Sheeps.
No, he
Skins?
made vests, slippers, clothing out of sheepskin.
Sort of thing we dream about in retirement.
Yeah. And then the last was a leather division where we made, I don't know if you guys are familiar with dice cups. So for shaking dice.
Yeah. Okay.
That's very popular in Wisconsin and pockets throughout the United States. And so we had those 3. And shortly after he took over, Milwaukee Tool was like, hey, could you make some accessories for our polishing tools? And my dad was a big car nut. He's like, yeah, we got the sewing equipment. Let's
got the
do
sheep.
that. Yeah, we got the materials to do it.
Oh, that's a shame.
And it
So
went from
I was hoping it was going to be one day he was just holding his slipper and rubbing it against a car, and the polishing pad was invented, and that's the history of it. Yeah. I mean, this story is good as well, but I think my one would have been better if we can amend it.
Well, there's been some at trade shows. There's been some interesting requests for. We were at On Mechanica in the 80s, and we had a customer coming from India who raced camels and asked my dad if they made camel booties. So they wanted to know if we could make coverings for the camel's feet.
And he looked at it and said, hey, that's a good camel booty.
He sure did, yes.
Gave the ump.
Hey!
I hope nobody would make that joke. And so we had Milwaukee coming in asking for these pads to be made.
Yeah, and then it just grew from there. We started with making wool pads and wash mitts and stuff of that nature, and then gradually expanded into foam and other materials.
Well, I'm going to pick up on that one because that's really interesting. So in the States, we're talking, let's say the 80s, just keep it vague. Everything was rotary polishing, and wool was the sort of number one go-to. Foam was kind of more of a European thing. We're talking late 80s now, I'm guessing, with foam.
Yeah, about that time. And so, there was, early on with foam, it was mainly filter foams. So stuff that we would be using for furnaces and the like. And that's what was available, but it wasn't strong enough to withstand doing that. So we started doing some research and found some foams out of Europe that could withstand it.
Reticulated foams. Or were they later?
They were later.
I just wanted to say the word reticulated.
Yeah. It was non-reticulated, but there's advantages and disadvantages of both. But yeah, we brought them in and had great success selling them.
Cool. And one thing that kind of strikes me is in my head at least, Lake Country is known for foam, bringing foam to the kind of the mass market. Maguire's is known for bringing microfiber to the mass market. They're kind of your two champion side of things. But then you've also bought a lot of microfiber pads, and more recently we've seen quite a lot of development of the microfibers. Where do you feel in terms of pad technology the greatest headroom is for development? Because as I say, you brought out microfibers and revised them. Foams have been regularly revised. Where do you feel that there's wool, for example? I mean, we've already had a comeback with wool with the whole short wool pads for DA use. What do you think is the next big thing for pads?
I think you're going to start to see different types of materials that are used. So I think you're going to see more types of knitted goods that are capable for rotary, that don't shed, as well as stuff that's more aggressive but can handle a DA application or a gear-driven application. I think that's where you're going to see the next line of innovation from a material standpoint.
Well, that's interesting. Well, you heard it here first. When it comes to the foam development, the one thing that sticks in my head slightly is the Rupes bought out the Bigfoot. They bought out the LHR50. Well, they bought out the 21 first, didn't they?
21 first. And they bought out. They had a 6 mil through originally, didn't they? And then that's when they moved on to the long throw Bigfoot range.
Yeah. And it was because the thing I remember when it was happening, because a lot of the pads were exploding when they're on there. Yep. And you were saying even the some of the early CCS stuff was also suffering from it. But you guys figured a way around it pretty much first with the HDO thing, and the whole HDO range came out because of its ability to withstand the abuse of a 15 or 21 mil throw DA.
Yeah. For us, in our history of making pads, we were the first ones to bring European foams into the U.S. market because we saw the advantage of them compared to what was available. When long throw polishers came out, clearly pads were blowing up like crazy. People didn't really understand why. Well, with our history, we were able to figure that fairly quickly, and we came out with the first HD pads, which were dual layer material, which could help withstand the rigors of a long throw polisher mainly from a heat perspective, but because of the length that it's moving, it really wears a pad out very quickly. That had an impact, but it wasn't where it needed to be. And a year and a half later, we came out with the HDO pads, which are now commonplace in the market.
Yeah, they've fallen their place. Well, let's go back a little bit to you. So, as we say, born in 1980, and then you were doing your grad degree in Dallas in sports science. God, I really sound very pervy here, don't I? In sports science and business. So it was a kind of an MBA, wasn't it?
Yes, it was an MBA. I had played tennis through high school and in college. And so I wanted to stay in the sports industry. So I pursued that. So I got my MBA with the emphasis on the business side of the sports industry. Got to do some work for a professional rodeo. I got to work for FC Dallas of Major League Soccer, and some other amateur sporting groups.
So what were you doing for the professional rodeo? I think we've glossed over quite an important story.
I had that in my notes to come back to that.
Yeah. So for me, luckily I wasn't involved with the animals per se, but before and after the show, there was an outside area that had vendors, a concert that people would go to. So I was in charge of getting the vendors, getting the tents, getting the talent, working with the city, making sure there's bathrooms, all that fun stuff.
I have to admit, rodeo, we don't realize quite what a big deal it is, because I was out, I remember as a 7 or 8 year old, went to a rodeo in Houston.
Yep, that's a big spot.
And it was pretty wild. And at the end, they had a pig with a $50 note round its neck. And we were kind of, all the kids were put into the ring to chase around it. And I thought this was a whale of time. I was a very feral child, to be fair. And I was also bigger than all of the other ones, better nourished, should we say. So I grabbed the pig and sat on it. And then this rotund little girl grabbed the money and then won the competition. So I was absolutely furious. And the only way they could mollify me was saying, allow me to go in the back of a pickup truck. And then they drove through, I'm going to call it the desert because it was sandy and there was nothing there, shooting bullfrogs. And just seeing exploding big frogs, basically, at night with spotlights. And I just think it was one of the most fun things that you could ever do as a 7-year-old.
Yeah, that sounds awesome.
Yeah, it was a giggle. They didn't let me drive.
Yeah.
Apart from that, it's absolute fun. Anyway, so away from exploding amphibians or reptiles, amphibians. I don't know. I think they're amphibians. We are now looking at you coming back into the field, and you've been down in Dallas. Everything was great. And did you ask to come back? Were you asked to come back?
It was kind of a time in my life I was transitioning. A lot of my friends were getting married. I wasn't ready for that kind of thing. And I got an opportunity to go back to the family business and work on the marketing side of the business, build their first website, all that kind of stuff.
Wow. So that was 2006-ish, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And so you went back to work, and you kind of, by the sounds of it, you went around the different departments. So you got your head around, the marketing and then the business side, and you really were handy on the tools sort of thing. You were kind of familiar with that side of things.
Yeah. I mean, I grew up as a kid. I was there, cleaning bathrooms I could run a lot of
summer work there.
Summer work, and I could run a lot of the equipment. So, I knew the manufacturing side of the business, but I didn't have any experience with the office side. So came back, did marketing for a few years, then went back into operations, but led them, help to get more efficient processes and all that fun stuff.
Oh, I do like operations management.
Yeah. And then after doing that for about 4 years, I took over so my dad he actually ran the operations day to day. And we had an outside person from the family that was the president of the company. When he retired, I took over as president at that time. And that was in 2014.
So that's 6, 7, 8, 9 years ago.
Yep.
So you would have been early 30s?
Yeah.
Crikey. That must have been quite intimidating. Or was it like natural? Was it just like a glove for you?
No, for me, it was something like I knew that I needed to step up and do it. But I was fortunate that I got involved with some other business owner groups that were similar in size as us at the same time. We had similar issues, that I had a group of peers that I could, they were 10, 15 years older than me. So they may have experienced some things that I hadn't yet.
Yeah.
But I could bring a younger perspective.
A bit more energy.
To some of the things that they were experiencing. So it worked out really good. And I still talk to half a dozen of those today, and we meet regularly. So it's been awesome to have that kind of support group.
That's cool. Well, I mean, because another awesome side, to quote you, that I've seen is, and I think we first came across this with Mr. Patterson, wasn't it? Is about you positively encourage employees to have kind of side games, side projects, side ventures that are kind of innovative. And sometimes they link in with LC, sometimes they're completely unrelated, and actually fostering that creativity. And you were talking earlier, you mentioned how it kind of helps with retention, as in people are staying around for longer because they love being able to work there and exist in a kind of more wholesome way, should we say?
Yeah, I encourage people that, hey, if I can help you do whatever you want to do outside, it could be automotive to our business, it could be something totally separate, but I understand that, hey, if I force you to do your job all the time, you're not going to enjoy it, it's not going to be fun. And I encourage people to be creative, try new things, come up with new ideas. My door's always open, and bring them to me. And like a great example is the tool. Our engineer, who's been with us for 30 years, he has come up with a lot of great ideas, including the System 4000 pad washer.
He's an aeronautical engineer or something?
He's an aeronautical engineer, yes. He's a certified FAA mechanic, so it's always nice flying with him. He's got the power to any aircraft. He can shut it down. That's how powerful he is.
When he's worried, then you're in an aircraft.
Well, most of the time,
when to panic.
Yes, if he's worried, then it's a problem. So, but no, and he came to me literally with a block of wood with those plastic ears you would have as a kid, and a math formula, and he goes, Jay, are you interested in making a polisher? I said, hey, there's Flax Group they've been doing it for 60, 70 years plus. No, they're good at it. He goes, well, what if it could do multiple strokes in one? And I was like, well, now I'm interested. I was naive on how much work goes into it at that point, but yeah. So
what year was that you first came to you with the idea?
That would have been 27. Let's see. We came out the 51E came out in 2020, so that would have 2016.
I think we first heard about it in about 2018.
2018 is when
it was already 2 years old when there was the first sort of, this might be happening.
The concept we launched at Automechanica in 2018, and it was
a massive prick tease because every year is like, it's going to come out, it's going to come out.
Well, again, this was me being naive, and what goes into it, I know a lot more now. I thought we were a lot farther along when we launched it.
When he presented you with a block of wood.
Yes.
Just got to paint it, it's ready to go.
We had a usable sample, but but what was great about that show and SEMA that year was, obviously Automechanica was just crazy. I mean, we launched that video. We had more hits on that video in a week than we had on videos that were up for 7 years.
In fairness, 5,000 of those were probably me trying to garner the information off so we could write an article about it.
And it was great. We had distributors in countries that weren't planning to come to the show, put it on their forums and say, hey, should we find out more? Flew in just to see this tool. I mean, it was crazy. And then, but it was great because we got a lot of great feedback from potential distributors at that show, and even more at SEMA, which was good and bad. It was good because it helped get the 51E where it is, but it also pushed it back a little bit because there were some things we needed to tweak to be able to do that. But the feedback was substantial on the capabilities, and we've obviously learned a lot since then.
Well, innovation is something that seems to run through the thread because we've got the pad washers. Yep. So pad washers were hilarious. I had a day with Kelly down in Kent, and if you look from a distance and you don't use one, and you look at the price and what it is, effectively a bucket with some clever bazoutics in it, you think that's an awful lot of money for cleaning pads. I do it just with, a claw or some air gun or whatever, however your method is. And we were at a training session with the PVD guys, and a lot of them are equally as cynical. And Kelly just demonstrated it and got them to do it. And it was like this actually really works kind of thing. And I think John, one of the disties you got in the UK, sold out pretty much that day. As far as I could see, there were messages and offers of sexual favors to get the last one and stuff like that, which of course it was John. So that worked. Yeah. And just the pure kind of originality of it. And I appreciate that particular model was the 5000, which is a development of the 3000, or I got my numbers mixed up.
Yeah. So we had the Snappy Clean was the original, which actually you would plug in. There was a motor to that one. Mm-hmm. And then the next model was the System 2000, which was extremely successful. But the way the water wheel worked, it only worked on rotary. And at that time when it was developed,
you only needed rotary.
You only need rotary. And it was the first pad washer that was ever made that didn't need a motor. Mm-hmm. You just used the polisher as the motor, and it was extremely successful. Then we came out with the 3000 right before where the Porter cable and your small DAs had just come out before the long throw polishers, and it allowed it to do it. It had some shortcomings. And then we saw those shortcomings, fixed those, and came out with the 4000. And obviously that's been very successful for us.
Yeah, no, it's very cool. And so then that takes us back to the UDOS. And so development started 2017-ish. You were saying 2016, 17.
Yep.
And there are lots of iterations. And the thing is, so when it came out, in fact, Ian was one of the very first in the UK to have a play with it. Mm-hmm. What were your initial impressions on it?
It was a fantastic achievement for a company that had never built a polisher before. Mm. I looked at all the billet aluminium and everything on it and the overall design, and it kind of boggles that for a company that's never built something of that style before, it's an incredible achievement. Obviously, it wasn't perfect at that point. It was the first one in the UK, and since then you've been fiddling it and changing it and imagining a V2 of that's going to be coming out at some point, along with some other things that are in
probably don't mention it till all the stock of the V1 sold. So we can edit this. It's fine. It's fine.
But no, just to have that kind of thought in the first place, and have the ability and kind of the faith to run through with the idea from start to finish to production, to getting it out there, to flogging it on the open market, really impressive.
Yeah, real achievement. And it was that development of it. And when we first got it, I mean, what I was struck by is quality, because you've got the Rupes and you've got the Flex. Those are the kind of the bastions of quality. And then you've got all the kind of rebranded Chinese ones coming in, and they're cheap, fair enough, but they tend to vibrate, tend to make a lot of noise, tend to, not last forever. Probably okay for most. But you'd managed to go on in there, and you weren't shooting for those Chinese ones. You were shooting straight for Flex and Rupes and saying, no, we're not going to match you on your own game. We're going to match you and then beat you in terms of functionality. Mm-hmm. And yet there are some shortcomings in terms of, the weight and the heat, and it's something to get used to, but that's the point of a V1. It's the first one that's got to market. And I imagine there must have been 30, 40 prototypes before you got to that stage.
There was a lot of talk on, I think the hardest thing in the whole process was the balancing. So when you look at any tool in the market, it's got one function. So you just have to balance it for one function. We have 5 on the first tool. Yeah. So to be able to balance it as equally as you possibly can through 5 was, nobody's ever done it before. And we were fortunate enough to just find the right engineer that had worked for GE, and he helped to balance an MRI machine. So a 20,000-pound magnet going around doesn't want to torpedo through a hospital.
Well, to be fair, if they're in there, they're already sick anyway. So
in the right place. I don't think it's a blessing.
And after that, he worked for a company that did stuff for the Navy and nuclear submarines. So and he was a car guy and said, well,
That's why it glows.
I could probably balance this for you. Yeah. Sure enough.
That's cool.
Is it the most difficult part of the balancing for that, for me, would actually seem like it's the rotary rather than the sort of adaptable throws, because that's one point that has to be absolutely dead central every time. And if you've got other things moving around it, then that the rotary is the thing that actually makes that more complicated in my mind.
That's fair to say. That's what I would have thought too. Rotary's the hardest part about rotary is getting it home. So once it's home, you're locked in. The hardest part about balancing, it has to do more with how much variation in distance you have. So if you go from rotary to 21 millimeters in US, that's roughly 1 inch. That's quite a large span that you need to figure out how to balance. So that's where the challenge came in, is the more variation you have from
the two extremes.
Yes, your two extremes, correct.
So when you open up the bottom, and I've done this, it's probably invalidated warranty, but it wasn't my UDOS, so it's fine. And you look at how the gearbox works, it's really clever. I originally thought you were using something like a sort of dual mass flywheel style thing with a movable weight, but when you change it into the different modes, so you've got sanding mode, you've got the 3P modes, and then you've got the R mode for the rotary. Basically, if you imagine a counterweight going around, when you change the mode, the counterweight kind of moves in and out, and obviously F equals MA, so it's the moment of the weight and how far away it is from the central pivot. And then that in its own is a really kind of neat little mechanism. And then that mechanism itself has to spin around at God knows how many thousand RPM as well, and maintain kind of solidity, as well as being easily adaptable with the collar system.
Right.
That is... I wish you'd done like a acrylic transparent mock-up version of it so that you can see how all those gears work. That's a really good idea, actually. For Automechanica, why not do that?
Yes,
there we go.
yes,
I'll only take a small cut. And then you can actually see, and people go, oh, it's big and it's heavy and all this. And you say, well, look inside it. And then you're going to realize why. And actually, it's a masterpiece of packaging. And, it can only get better.
Well, you think when you see a foam pad that's just off-center by a couple of millimeters, how much that throws extra vibration into it. Now you times that by 100 for the extra weight of this counterweight.
Yeah, use steel. Yeah.
And you've got such minimal tolerances to deal with. That's where the engineering comes into it.
Yes, very tight tolerances. And you also have to look at the height difference between where the spindle is and where the pad, not only the backing plate, but the pad, because that also affects your vibration.
And then on the basis that loads of people, of course, are going to go and fit their own non-official backing plate or non-official pads. And so you've got to have the ability that the what do you call them? Not the threshold, what's the word? Margin of error to allow for somebody to put on a silly pad.
I mean, the backing plate's not so much of an issue simply for the fact that you would have to literally build your own backing plate for it to work on there. And that's obviously done for balancing purposes. But, we take into account, obviously the UDO pad line is developed for your ultimate balance. We understand that, hey, there's other pads you can use on it, but they could affect the vibration of the tool if you're not using them.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing, finally, before we do too much UDOS praising, but is the getting something you've designed and obviously built, the prototypes, everything in the States, into mass production in order to send thousands of them around the world. And I've got a bit of a background in kind of when you prototype something and you've got hours and hours to spend on it, you balance it perfect. As soon as that goes off to be, made by a completely, different sort of factory that specializes in these sort of things, getting them to maintain the quality and the tolerances is nigh on impossible. That must have been a serious management thing, because I'm guessing the skills required or the equipment required to build pads is obviously not the same required to build polishing machines. So you've got a whole different expertise to look into.
There's a little bit of a difference, but you have to maintain your tolerances no matter what. There's just more parts in a tool than in a pad. So by having tight tolerances across the board, you can maintain it. There's just, in a pad, there's a lot fewer. So when they all get stacked up, that's what you have. When you get some made, you see, okay, can they all be on the high side, or can they all be on the low side, or does it have to be in between? If they're all on the high side, you can find problems, or if they're all on the low side, you can find problems too.
Yeah, it's got to be within that zone, isn't it? Yeah.
And all this has to be for sale for under $1,000, because that's what people have come to. That's kind of the ceiling for what people will pay for a polisher, even if it is 1,500 quid's worth of polishers in a $1,000 package.
Yeah, I mean,
Switching currencies there. Sorry, I'm trying to adapt.
no, that's
You haven't adapted since the late 90s. So, I mean, what I was going to do is try and push you here for a bit of kind of insider knowledge, because we know there are things happening. We've already, by the sounds of it, this was the official announcement of the 51E Mark II. What else have you got in the pipeline that you can talk about? Bear in mind, this will probably go out, in a couple of years.
Well, I'll tell you what, we'll let them think about that, and we're going to have a break.
Happy days.
Automechanica 2023, widely known as the most important trade show for the UK automotive industry, with over 500 leading exhibitors taking part. It's on at the NEC in Birmingham between the 6th and 8th of June, and brand new for 2023, we have a dedicated detailing area as well as the Detailing Live Hub. Industry Educators UK Detailing Academy are hosting practical demonstrations, manufacturer showcases, and answering all of your detailing related questions. So visit the Automechanica Birmingham website today to book your free ticket.
And we're back here with Jay Schneider of Lake Country, who's flown in especially for our podcast here. I want to say that. It's not true.
yes.
The expenses are going to be terrible.
And so there are a couple of things I want to cover in part two. The first of all is product development. Now, I'm making quite strong eye contact here. Obviously, built for radio, you can't see it. But the thing is, and we have this with all manufacturers, they like to keep things under the chest before it comes out.
Yes.
And I, off mic, we've talked, and we know various things coming. So why don't you start off with your opening gambit? What can we expect to see in 2023 from LC?
You're going to see a lot more new products coming out this year. I will say a new tool will be coming out this year. Mm-hmm. I will not provide any more details, but I think everyone will be very happy with what it is. And it came about from a lot of feedback from the 51E.
So this tool, it's a polishing machine?
It's a polishing machine.
It's a polish machine.
It's got multiple strokes.
It's got multiple strokes. Is it powered by electricity?
Yes.
Is it powered by electricity connected to a wall or connected to a battery?
Wall.
It's wall powered.
He's got one of these Guess Who things in front of him, just flipping down options for machines as he goes. If you ought to also say into the microphone, there's not going to be any new polishers coming out this year, then we can edit that in afterwards if the situation changes. So.
Yeah, that's the point, because the original UDOS went through quite a lot of iterations. So there were quite a few false starts where we were promised it, and it was like, oh crap, we've actually got to develop this a bit more. So, are you, hand on heart, are you promising to deliver a machine in 2023?
Yes.
There we go. Got it sorted. Legally binding then. And in terms of other products, obviously last year you brought out the torch, which is kind of cool. Do we call it a torch, a lamp? I mean, it is a torch, but
Yes.
no.
We call it.
Call it Simon if you want.
Heart desires. It's depending on the market, they all have different names.
that's fair.
And same with polishing pads. Some call them sponges. Some call them
A luminary
pads.
vision device.
Yeah, there you go.
A full spectrum LED battery powered device. Awesome. Okie dokie. And
Pad-wise?
yeah, pad.
Pad wise, yes, we are working on a line that will be for the Marine.
For the Marine, like the
soldiers?
Royal Marine. Yeah.
It'll be yes, the soldiers.
Yeah, it's going to be bulletproof.
Yes.
Camouflage.
Yes.
Probably
yes.
you never find it outside. Yeah.
Yes. No, you'll see some new innovations in the Marine.
So if it's Marine, it's
Detailing.
going to be wool pad then, I guess, if it's Marine.
Waterproof.
A variety of materials.
Oh, I'm trying.
Does it float so when it flies off, you can still get it back afterwards out of the water?
Why are you polishing in the water?
Bit of danger. added into
It's
the life.
amazing he survived this far. Yeah. Hell, I get wobbly with the pad washer in the box. With the
Very talented. Electricity and water. Could be
life
interesting.
on-
I'd like
life
to
on the
watch
edge.
that video.
Yeah,
actually.
he thinks he's going to become a superhero from that experience. So all that's going to happen is going to die. Okay. And any other gadgets? Because obviously you're good at I call gadgets almost cheapens it. Detailing.
Let's look back at some of the historical gadgets that obviously have come up, because the first thing I ever bought that was Lake Country was the VRG adapter kit.
Okay.
So you get, because the VRG came with a 6
It's 5.5 inch plate.
Yeah.
The oddball
Useless,
of all backing plates.
And the great thing was, at the time, I'm probably one of the only people in the UK to actually have a cyclo polisher as well, which had the 4-inch pads, and the VRG then could be adapted to fit those 4-inch pads. So I effectively had a forced action spot machine. It was fantastic.
Nice.
Have you got like a little Q branch somewhere within the factory that sort of makes these little gadgets?
Skunk Works, Saturday afternoon club.
Maybe a polisher with a missile firing in it, or puts caltrops behind so in case you followed.
I would love to find a polisher that fires missiles, actually. So if you guys find it, or I'll let you know when we come out with
I'm pretty good with explosives, so I can do that bit.
There's one scratch just not coming in. So no, it's gone.
Insurance will cover that.
Yeah.
12 gauge.
No, we've been blessed with some individuals that are very creative and have many, many years in the trades, and talk to a lot of people and look for those shortcomings of products in the industry. And our record speaks for itself. I mean, we have over 70 patents worldwide in buffing and polishing products. And so there's more coming.
It's amazing how the sort of the aftermarket additions are growing in popularity so much over the last few years. We were talking the other day to a chap in Germany that hopefully we're going to be getting on a podcast soon, called Felix, who runs APS. And he's started making a lot of little adaptation pieces for the Flex PXE. And he's actually gone to the lengths of going to Flex, getting them to try it out. And amazingly, Flex have turned around and gone, yeah, actually, that's fine. You make those. Don't worry about our patents on it or anything like that, because you're doing a good job of it. So there's a massive market for slight improvements, incremental gains, just from things you can now 3D print yourself effectively.
Yeah, no, for sure. And we do get a lot of submissions for product ideas, and some of them are worth exploring more. Others.
Is that mostly internal?
No, we get external ideas as well.
So my emails do get through.
But what I do is, sometimes I'll review it. They may have limited scope of the market compared to my experience. So if it's not a product for Lake Country, I will help them in whatever way. If they think it's something that they can patent, I will help aid them in going through that process, since I've gone through it multiple times. It could be, hey, this isn't a product for me. Maybe you should talk to this company or that company that's more in their wheelhouse. So I love innovation. Even if it's not right for Lake Country, I will help those innovators get on a path to their hopes and dreams.
It's when they get in contact and say, I want a pad that's specifically this color because that's my company color. It's like, I'm not going to mass produce that. That's not going to help me.
Well, I will if you have the volume. Most of the times they don't, though, unfortunately.
Well, actually, that brings up an interesting topic, which is the OEM white label market. And what a lot of people don't realize is that they may well have used LC pads without realizing there were LC pads, because 70% or so of the business is white label work. So you work with other manufacturers of other products and basically provide them with your expertise about pads, just like you are, offloading ideas that aren't in your wheelhouse to companies that are better suited for it.
Right. Like I had mentioned earlier with Milwaukee Tool, we work with a lot of tool manufacturers. We work with polish companies. We work with OEMs, car manufacturers. So our products are used on the line.
That's cool.
In the U.S. on multiple different types of vehicles. And so we work with all up and down, from, our products, our wool pads are used on making bathtubs, polishing bathtubs, to marble countertops, to you name it. And so we've seen a lot. We've developed a lot
We've
of
been
things.
to a lot of bathtubs. Yeah. That's cool. Well, looking forward now, we're obviously at the kind of, I'd like to say we're at the beginning of the year. We're not quite, we're well into it now, but the show season for UK and Europe, there's lots of bits and bobs coming up, aren't there? Do you want to tell us kind of where we can come and visit you this year?
I'm not the best person to answer that question, but I know we'll be in the UK with Waxstock. There's a boat detailing show that we'll be a part of. I know we'll be in Germany, Decon.
Decon, yeah.
France.
Detailing show and tours.
Yeah. So we're going to be at a lot of places, and also visiting and working with our distributors in those countries too, outside of those that we may be attending as well. Look for David and go to our website. Our website will have all of those shows that we're attending and our location.
Well, it's good advice. Always keep an eye out for David, just in case. He comes up from behind sometimes. You don't see it. He is in
He's
fact
a sneaky fella.
in the room.
There's usually blue lights around him.
And the handcuffs. So we've done the show side. So I think it is time now that we do our 10 ironically named quickfire questions.
Sure.
So I'm just going to get my list out because I can't remember them despite doing this for God knows how many years.
4 seasons. 4 seasons.
4
we've been doing
seasons.
this.
4 seasons.
Actually, three seasons of the quick questions.
So we're not quite a pizza then. So easy one to kick off with. What's your current car? I imagine you have more than one. I mean, you run a big multi-million-pound company. Surely you've got lots of cool cars.
I personally don't have a lot of cool cars, but I don't have time. I've got a wife and 2 daughters and 2 dogs. They keep me busy, but
We all make the bad choices.
but I have a 2016 Jeep Grand Cherokee Overland that I enjoy.
The Overland, so that's one that's optimized for actual kind of off-roading, whereas in the UK it's just a spec level.
Yeah, it can do that, and it gets me from A to B. And what's nice is we have a nice garage at the factory, so I can clean it up and try new stuff on it. So.
Do you have a detail bay at the factory that everyone can use? Yeah,
we do. We open it up to all employees, but we've had trainings there with Mike Phillips and other people that you would know. We've had a Ring Brothers car in our facility that we've detailed and done stuff with, cleaned it up for that owner for a show that he was doing. It's just a great facility that we can do. We can run any type of equipment. We can heat it up, cool it down, so we can simulate the environment that that the end user in their market would be in. Because if it's hot and humid, the pads are going to be affected differently than if it's.
How do you make it hot and humid? You just get Mike Phillips up in Florida.
No, we have a heater in there, so we'll crank the heat way up so it gets it, and then we don't just look at it. We have devices that
Monitor it.
monitor the depth of scratch before and after, gloss before and after, time trials, and heat. So we scientifically do a lot of things, not just it looks better.
So because you're in. Now I'm going to try and say this right. Occomono. Occomono. A Wookiee.
I love it. We have a lot of Native American history in the state of Wisconsin, so it's actually pronounced Oconnomowoc.
Occomono.
Yep.
Is that like how Milwaukee's pronounced Milwaukee?
Some people will say it that way.
I'm quoting from Wayne's World here. That's my entire knowledge of.
Yeah, we're located about a half hour west of Milwaukee.
Gotcha. And it's in Wisconsin, of course.
Yep.
So what's your climate? How hot does it get? How cold does it get?
Let's see. This time of year, we're typically in the teens Fahrenheit, so below zero.
I was about to say, you're going to quote him like feet of snow or something.
Yeah. Well, it depends. We're in the southern part of the state. Northern part of the state gets significantly more snow and colder weather than where we're located. So, but yeah, we'll range anywhere from on the really cold end, like -10 Fahrenheit, to we can go all the way up to like 100 degrees Fahrenheit. So we can really have the gamut throughout the year.
We need to find someone who can translate Fahrenheit into metric. What is 100 degrees Fahrenheit? I think that's about 40 degrees.
Something like that, yeah.
Blimey.
Oh, yeah, because if you're over 100, then you've got a fever, haven't you?
Yeah. Oh, I'm being nodded. We've got Dave in the background here who is old enough to remember Fahrenheit, so he's translated that. -25 is on the other side. That's really cold. Yeah, it is.
And David's been there for it.
Oh, he's pretty tough. He's from Milton Keynes. So moving on, these really quick fire questions.
Yeah.
I'm guessing a Grand Cherokee, even the Overland edition, is probably not your all-time dream car.
No.
What might that be?
You know, that's a great question. There's just so many cool cars out there. I mean,
I know, Imprezas, Legacies, Outbacks, Foresters. It's really difficult.
Yeah, it is.
It's nice if you start from the bottom and work up.
I've always been a fan of Porsches. So my dad has a 2006 Carrera 4S.
2006, so it's going to be a 996?
No.
997?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Round headlights.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I mean,
Have you asked him about his IMS bearing?
I'm sure it'll be mine someday. So I look forward to driving.
Well, make sure he does the engine rebuild.
Yeah,
while he's here.
right, exactly. But yeah, no, I just, you know, I still love gas, so I'm not into the electric cars. I know it's the big thing right now, but
You can't get excited about electric cars.
they just don't sound tough and mean. You
No.
know, when you hear wee or nothing, it doesn't get you fired up. Like
You can't wake the neighbours.
No.
To be fair, I have a problem even with ICE or internal combustion engine because when they've got the fake noise being piped through you, I want to hear, when my cam belt snaps, I want to hear those valves bending in the car. I don't want to be electronically synthesized.
Yes. I mean, literally across the street from us is one of the largest Harley Davidson distributors in the country, and so we hear a lot of
Oh,
rumblings.
big twins and stuff like that. Yeah.
So
Nice.
that's pretty cool.
So, what was the first car you ever detailed? And I appreciate you're not obviously a detailer by trade, but
Yep.
there must be a car that you kind of stands in your memory as one that you started to clean with some serious ferocity.
That was probably my first car, which was a 95 Ford Escort GT.
Now, the interesting thing here is your Ford Escort is different from our Ford Escort.
Yes.
So it's a very different, it's actually a bigger car because you call it a subcompact.
This was a two-door, not a hatchback, just a regular back.
It looked like is that the one that at the front looks kind of like a Fox body Mustang if you've drank a lot?
Yes.
Yep.
Yep. And it was, it was white. It was a piece, but it was like there was no rear ejection for the back hatch, so I could pull the key straight out of the ignition, and I'd give the key to them so they could pop the back, and then they give me the key, and the car's still running. You know.
So it's a car for people with friends.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. But no, that was it was my first car. I kept it up and learned a lot on that car.
Yeah, that's cool. So, slightly personal question. Don't worry, there are lots of people here around this table, as you've probably heard now and then. But how many buckets do you like to use?
2, one for washing, one for cleaning pads.
Okay, that's interesting. That's fewer than I thought. I thought you're going to be our bucket happy people.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it's a massive, supersized bucket. Though. We never say how big this bucket has to be. It's actually more like a bin, like a dustbin.
Yeah.
Now this is one that's going to be contentious for yourself. Do you prefer a rotary action or a DA?
Yes. Now,
Okay,
from my
And you can have that
experience-
choice with
yes.
just this one polisher.
Yeah. No, in all honesty, there's a place for both, but most of the time I use DA.
Yeah. That's cool. Another deeply personal question. Do you like to use wax or a coating?
Wax.
Yeah, old school.
Yeah, old school.
Proper job. Fairly irrelevant question. Ferrari or Porsche? I think we already know the answer.
Yes, Porsche.
Yeah. Okay, more important question. Serious question.
Yeah.
Note the ferocity of my beard
Yes.
here. Subaru or Mitsubishi?
Well, the answer for me is very easy, and that's Subaru. Because
He lives.
we actually, our pads are used on the line at the Subaru plant in
Oh,
the
Indiana.
United States. Yep.
Awesome.
Yep.
We've so got to do. It's something that we've been wanting to do is come over to America for Vegas for the SEMA show and all the rest of it. But I've always been a bit reticent. But so the guys at Indiana Subaru plant.
So we work through the distributor. We've been in there. You typically in all those plants, you have a guy that has access to sell product in there.
Yeah.
And
You have to take them out for dinner a lot.
no, actually, they come to us because of our technical knowledge. we'll work with the people on the line and we solve their problem, and that's how we get the business. So
Ian's going to make a joke here about their problem.
No.
No,
It's
that's
too easy.
really cool.
It's too easy.
yeah.
Well, so that's the official announcement. Pro Detailer will be coming to America at some point. Once we can find out how to fund it, we will be going there to the Indiana Subaru factory. Woo! Another question. Oh, this is really awkward. Flex or repairs? We have to keep it consistent between things.
Well, due to the people in the room, I have to definitely go with flex.
The irony is here we have an ex-flex man, we have an ex-repairs man staring at each other.
That's basically a double kick today because of the people in the room. It's definitely not going to be.
Okie dokie. So we are now on our final question. And this one I always feel kind of reveals if someone's got a life, frankly. Sunday drive or Sunday detail?
With the family, it's Sunday drive. I tried to.
It'd be a bit weird if it wasn't. Come on, kids, watch me polish a car.
It's the one day a week I really try to spend with the family.
Mm-hmm.
But you can get around that by training your two girls to detail your car for you on a Sunday, really. It's all
Well,
about.
to be honest with you, they love coming to work and going to the wash bay and help me wash the car. So I'll take that one. Not yet.
How old are we talking?
9 and 7.
Okay, a little bit young then
Yeah.
for picking up a free spinning machine.
Yeah, right. But I'll take the help on washing it.
Yeah.
Well, sills.
It's not like today's a Sunday. You've managed to run to the other side of the world to avoid spending
it's
time.
just a little difference.
Cool. All right then, Jay. Well, look, thank you so much for coming all the way over from the United States for our podcast. It's really very much appreciated.
I'm very thankful that you had us on.
While you're over here, if you want to go somewhere else, that's fine.
Yeah, we won't take offense.
Well, that's very kind of you to let me do that. I appreciate it.
We're very liberal. Marvelous. Okay, well, I'm sure there'll be another opportunity and have you on the podcast again soon. But for now, it is goodbye from me.
Goodbye from me.
Thank you. Appreciate it.